Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm hoping that you all can hear me. So I'm sorry to interrupt your meal, but we wanted to get started so we could try and meet our promise to get everybody out of here at 7:30. So I'd like to welcome you to this very special Headrest event. My name is Lori Harding. I'm chair of the board, and I'm very honored to be so. So you will notice that the theme of this evening, if you've looked at your program, has to do with hope. Cameron is going to talk a little bit about hope, and our guest speaker is going to talk about hope, and I'm going to talk about hope. In fact, I'm sure you will hope that nobody else talks about hope by the end of the time that we're spending together. So Headrest has not always been able to celebrate our staff, our agency, and our work in this particular kind of way. We'd like to give a special shout out to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center for the venue, and to GeoCon, especially Chuck Chamley. He's here representing GeoCon. Chuck, can you raise your hand? Right back here. I know Chuck from the distant past because he was at Lebanon High School when my kids were at Lebanon High School. But he was there as an athletic director, is that right, Chuck?
My dad.
That was your dad, okay. That was your dad, I'm sorry. So we're all here together because of the generosity of GeoCom and Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. Our community partners, our board members, and our staff and our supporters, all of you, give us hope that people care about each other and the work that it takes to support our friends and family and neighbors who are in recovery or who are struggling with substance use disorders and hope to one day be in recovery. As chair of the Headrest board, I'm going to do a number of acknowledgments. So I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until the end. We have just had the opportunity to enjoy Hilda Ojibwe's band. It's never too late. I love that name, Hilda. Hilda was our interim executive director last year, the year prior to our hiring of Cameron Ford. Her band also includes Adam Sorcher. So I'm hoping that you also will consider going to hear them up at the Loch Lime Lodge. You didn't realize you were going to get an advertisement. On July 1st, they'll be singing there. So thank you especially for taking the time to come. I would also like to welcome a couple of individuals who have very special ties to Headrest. Two of our former executive directors are here. Actually, Ed Register, are you here? I have not seen Ed, but Ron Michaud is here. Thank you for coming, Ron. You represent all the past executive directors. In addition, we have Representative Susan Almy, and Susan, I think, just walked in. Now, you're not following directions very well. I wanted you to hold the applause until I was finished giving the acknowledgments. You get a slight aerobic workout for clapping. Representative Almy has been a very good friend of Headrest for many years. And also, Representative Mary Jane Mulligan. I have not seen her tonight, so I'm sorry that she's not here. We also have with us Chris Christophilus, the Lebanon chief of the fire department, in the back table. Chris, can you wave? Chris is very important because the fire department is the next door neighbor of Headrest at 14 Church Street. So it's really nice to have Chris here. And in addition, we have Stacy Chiacchio, who does the community outreach for Hypertherm, and Hypertherm has been incredibly generous to Headrest in so many ways over the years. I would also like to introduce Adam Sayre. Adam is back there from CATV 8, filming this event for us. Thank you very much, Adam, for taking the time to come. And we'd like to share this evening with others, especially Dwight Davis's presentation. So it's great that Adam is here. I would particularly like to acknowledge our board members, and maybe each of you, as I call your names, you could raise your hands. Karen Bordstrom, and Jim Larrick, and John Cray, Charlotte Sanborn, John Van Sant, Perry Eaton, and our two most recent board members elected tonight, Angie Leduc in the back and Matt McKinney. It's wonderful to have them both with us. Matt is at Hyperthurn, and Angie works for Community Health up at Dartmouth. And then I also wanted to mention our committee chairs, Harrison Drinkwater and Andy Doppensbeck. Where are you, Andy? And John Fernie and Paul Guillaume unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, and then Carol Olwert wasn't able to be here tonight. Did I get everybody? Okay, good. So I especially wanted to mention thanks to all of them because of the hard work that they've all done this year as we've completed a strategic plan, revised our bylaws, updated our personnel policies. With much collaboration with the staff, we've developed a budget that was made based on a zero-based budget approach. So we absolutely zeroed out everything in the budget and then started anew, including looking at how much it cost to do our laundry and also to do the plowing. But I think everybody learned a lot as a result of that initiative. We held our first legislative breakfast this year. We moved on to Office 365. We agreed to a board assessment, established a more formal board orientation program, and followed through on a system to verify compliance with our employee handbook and operations manual, and hosted a very successful 2017 Rail Trail Ramble. That event is scheduled again for Labor Day, so I hope we'll see you all on the trail. Most importantly, when all is said and done, it's really the Headrest hotline, transitional living, outpatient and vocational programming staff that makes Headrest what it is today through their commitment to our mission, their expertise, their incredible patience and understanding. This is not an easy job. Their respect for the individual, their professionalism, their willingness to move furniture and take care of clients, and most importantly, their willingness to work as part of a team that shares in the hope for recovery. So I have to say, it takes an army, not just a village, in order to keep our nonprofit going. I would like to speak a minute about the work that Headrest does and will do going forward. The suicide rates in New Hampshire are alarming. They've increased by 50% over the last 17 years. 50% over the last 17 years. The only states in the country that have a higher suicide rate than New Hampshire are North Dakota and Vermont. The fastest increase in suicide is in middle-aged adults. Suicide is among the top 3 causes of death among middle-aged teenagers. People who commit suicide often have other behavioral health issues that may or may not be evident to others. Our hotline data tells the story. In July 2017, our hotline received 246 calls from people who called indicating some sort of mental health concern. That's in 1 month. Those calls this past month, in May, jumped to 394. In July of 2017, the hotline received 22 calls related to substance use disorder, while in May of 2018, they received 147. And lastly, the suicide calls over the last several months have fluctuated around 100 calls each month. And the hotline staff, all of our staff, could tell you some very compelling stories about the important nature of the work they do. The hotline is a very critical service where hope, direction, and life-saving interventions can be offered to people who are desperate on the other end of the phone in the middle of the night when the world is dark for them. There is no source of reimbursement for this service, no source of reimbursement for this service. This service costs about $200,000 a year, which is why every time we host an appeal, run the Rail Trail Ramble, our efforts in fundraising go directly into maintaining our hotline. While Headrest offers hope for so many individuals through our outpatient programs and our other programs, these programs alone are not enough for most people. We don't have a great supportive network here in the Upper Valley, other than Turning Point and Wilder. And the reality is, for a lot of our clients, we can't take our clients across the river because they have a criminal record. We don't have sober housing on the New Hampshire side of the river, or we don't have a gathering spot for those who are in recovering. Many of the Headrest clients cannot travel to Vermont, as I've mentioned. Our community needs a continuum of care that will welcome people who are new in recovery or have attempted recovery in multiple situations and failed. We know that the opposite of addiction is community. Addiction is a disease of isolation. The future of Headrest is going to be in working with our clients along with other organizations to offer hope and programming that will help our clients be part of a caring community. Over the years, our clients have tended to be isolated from the medical community and from other social services, including sometimes other behavioral health services, both because they felt the system would label them and reject them because of stigma associated with their disease, but also because the system really didn't know how to deal with our clients, or sometimes even with professionals who work in the field of addiction. We've worked in such silos for years. Now there's a growing appreciation for how important it is for all of us to work together to create a sense that no one owns a client. It's up to all of us to identify what people need for support and care and help them get it. People need a sense of community beyond our 90-day transitional living program. Our case managers are working really hard to help people transition into a meaningful way of life back in the community, or to our outpatient program, or to our new vocational program, or looking for ways to get care for someone at West Central, for example, or at Alice Peck Day Multi-Specialty Clinic for medication-assisted treatment. Little by little, the doors are opening, so we're working more collaboratively together to care for our collective clients. But it's a culture change for everyone, and we need to move these changes forward. We're entering into some very dangerous times right now. I'm looking at Sue Ellen. With some of our recent changes in Medicaid expansion, our clients will be moving to a managed care model and be held to a work requirement. None of us in behavioral health really know how this is going to work out. We're all holding our breath. We think the work requirement makes a lot of sense. We're just worried that people are going to get removed from Medicaid and then have to come back on again based on whether or not they can meet some of these requirements. Headrest is a very tiny organization. It's the only one of its kind in all of New Hampshire. If we're going to continue providing services for our clients, these partnerships that we've started to develop in the past year are critical. They give us hope. It's so clear that our work does not stop. It cannot stop as we discharge after 90 days at 14 Church Street. Creating a community is not about just those of us that provide services for substance use disorder, talking among ourselves. It's about all of us talking openly about mental health disorders and substance use disorders that so many face. It's about being open about the struggle and recognizing the stigma that accompanies substance use disorder and finding hope going forward. So last year, we welcomed our new executive director, Cameron Ford. We knew that Cam came with many strengths, one of them being the capacity to juggle many balls and thrive on hard work. What we didn't know was just how many balls he was able to juggle and just how hard he was willing to work. We've had so much going on this year as a board and as a staff. The board's head is spinning. I'm sure the staff's head is spinning. In some ways, it's all about trying to keep up with Cameron. Cameron and I make a bit of a dangerous team because we both like to crank out new ideas. So together we have to periodically say to each other, are we doing too much? Cameron never says yes to are we doing too much. He always says, no, we can do more. So we're grateful to you, Cam, for all that you've brought to Headrest. And thank you all very much for being here and helping us to make this night what it is. Thank you.
So what she said. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Cameron Ford, Executive Director for Headrest. And tonight, I'm incredibly honored to be part of the team that we call Headrest. It's an exciting place to be because we have the opportunity and the responsibility to provide the best possible treatment we can to help people suffering from substance use disorder and to help them get their lives back, to show them that they have a purpose in life and that dreams can be achieved. It's exciting for me because I don't have to come to work every day at Headrest. I get to come to work at Headrest, and that's exciting for me. And I get to work with a team of people who are second to none in their dedication to creating opportunity for every individual who comes through our doors. I'd like the staff for Headrest to stand, please, and be recognized. If it weren't for these amazing people coming to work every day, working out schedules, dealing with crisis after crisis, and keeping our facilities in great shape, well, then I have to do it myself. But seriously, it makes me so proud to be part of this team of leaders in our industry. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all that you do every single day. I also want to thank the board of Headrest. This group of people come together every month and many times more in committee meetings to support, to challenge, and drive the mission of Headrest. When I started at Headrest 14 months ago, I took on a legacy that's now 47 years old. This organization, which started as grassroots on the Dartmouth campus in 1971, has been a rock in this community. I've met so many people that have worked at Headrest as volunteers, employees, past board members, and executive directors, and one I haven't met yet, so I'm going to be nice to meet you. I now believe that there was a point in time that if you drove through Lebanon like a toll booth, it was a requirement to stop and work a shift at Headrest. The one common thread that every person has spoken with has said without hesitation was that the organization was something to believe in. That Headrest is an organization that maintains such a vital role in the social well-being in the Upper Valley. There have been many changes over the years, and Headrest's ability to adapt to the needs of the community and social issues has been amazing. Although the perceived identity of Headrest may have taken different forms over the years, a homeless shelter, a rooming house, detox, and many other iterations, the mission of helping people through their worst times has never wavered. Recently, with the wave of the opioid crisis and substance use disorder gripping our communities across the country, and our friends, our neighbors, co-workers, and our family members, we have had to become more proficient in best practices, do twice as much work for the same amount of money, stay on the cutting edge of the newest drug destroying people's lives, and we have become a more professional organization. Or as a former director said to me recently, Headrest got all corporate-y. So, this landscape sure has changed, and the challenges are great, but with the people in this organization and all of you here who support us financially, attend our events like the Rail Trail Ramble every Labor Day, and through volunteerism, oh my gosh, Hypotherm. I can't say enough about what they did for us this year. So that's been great. We are meeting that challenge every day. This year, we've had several areas of growth. Let me talk about a few. We're expanded to 14 beds in our Church Street location. Again, a Hypotherm, there was like a pack of bees came in and painted the place. It was just amazing. We could not have done it on time and as well as what they did. So we thank them for that. We've also developed a partnership with the Alice Peck Day medically assisted treatment program, where we're providing counseling services for clients who are receiving medically assisted treatment. And it's been a great partnership, and it continues to grow. And so we're excited about that. We moved to 141 Mascoma Street. We moved our administration and our outpatient programs. That's been a great move. It's provided a really nice place for people to come to when they're coming for their treatment. It provides them with a lot of respect and an amazing staff who work with them. We have a vocational program now. I'm really excited about that. Vocational program work is a thing that's pretty near and dear to my heart and my whole career. And Lori Bartlett is our new vocational person. And she's hit the ground running, just working with a lot of employers and helping them understand the value of people getting back to work, and also how when people who are in recovery get a job, their self-esteem just skyrockets and helps them even feel better about their recovery prognosis. So that's great. We also have a strategic plan that takes us 5 years into the future. That's an exciting piece because it's our roadmap to where we need to go. To meet the demand of these changes and growth requires determination and sound financial strategies that make our success sustainable. We've embarked on a strategy that always looks to be efficient and continually look at ways to do better, be better, and have better outcomes. These strategies make a difference because it means that we can focus on our energies on the things that matter most as an organization, and that's helping people get their lives back. I believe the outlook for Headrest is very bright. We are forging real relationships with community partners, such as West Central. We're staying ahead of the curve in our service delivery techniques and growing in a way that meets the needs of people who need the most help. Fiscally, we are making sure that every dollar we are gifted by so many foundations, state dollars, and by every single donor who we reach out to during our annual spring appeals and at our fundraising events goes directly to providing opportunity for someone to literally get their life back. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for your continued support of Headrest. Sometimes in this world, in this field, you run across people in your career that make a difference for you, and you never forget them, and you never forget the message that they carry consistently year after year after year. I had the pleasure of about 15 years ago of meeting Dwight Davis through the Workforce Council for working with youth in a program that I was running, and immediately you understand the passion that Dwight has for helping people and giving back every single day of what he does. And so Dwight, I'm going to put my other glasses on, as a standout athlete for the University of Houston, Dwight was selected as third overall pick of the 1972 NBA draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's the 6'8". I think he's taller than that, but averaged 8.6 points and 5.9 rebounds in a 340 career regular season games, and voted to be the NBA All-Rookie team. In 1975, he was traded to the Golden State Warriors. He's now vice chair of the National Basketball Retired Players Association. Among his many accomplishments off the court, Dwight was appointed by Governor John Lynch to the Hampshire Workforce Council, became its chair in 2008. He received the National Workforce Leadership Award in 2009 for his extensive work with New Hampshire Youth at Risk. But success in life never comes easy and never be taken for granted, as Dwight will explain. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend, Dwight Davis.
When you play basketball, you have to learn to talk very loud, because there's a thing in basketball called a pick. And if you don't tell your teammate that he's about to get picked, his head gets taken off and you lose a friend for life. So you learn to talk really robustly. But I'm really grateful to be here tonight with you at your annual meeting. It's always an honor for me to work with people like Cameron. As Cameron mentioned, we met 15 years ago, and the work I was doing, it paled in comparison to the work Cameron was doing at that time, and apparently continues to do. I got a chance to meet with Lori and Harrison on a trip up here just to see the area and look at Headrest, because I'm reluctant to go into a situation and talk with any sort of authority without having some idea of who I'm talking to and what I should be talking about. And I've been fortunate enough in recovery to do a little traveling across the country and talk to people, and I enjoy it. My mother, she had this golden rule that if you did something wrong, whatever you did wrong, you have to do something right twice as long. Okay? So my curse is I was an addict for over 20 years. So that means I have to go over 40 years doing good stuff. I'm 68 years old. I don't think I'm going to live that long. So I ask forgiveness of my mother right now, okay, in front of all of you. They're like any grandparents in there. If you're a grandparent, raise your hand. Oh, a bunch of grandparents in there. I have a granddaughter who I'm the apple of her eye. And I have about 5 grandkids now, and on the road I was on before, I would have been dead now, I'm sure, or in prison, and I wouldn't have a chance to enjoy my grandkids and enjoy my life and experience the things I've had a chance to experience. But before I go any further, I'm going to ask for your cooperation with me. Everybody here who can stand up, I'd like for you to stand right now. If you're able to stand, you stand for a moment. Okay, now if you were born in an even month, I'm going to ask you to take your hands out like so. If you were born in an even month of the year. If you were born in an odd number month, bring your hands like this, okay? My granddaughter, who I love, told me to get a standing ovation, so I'm going to take care of that right now. All right. And none of you can deny it either, okay? I got that out of the way. I was so very lucky to be born to my mother and father. My father's my hero, my mother's my shero. They were married for 64 years until the day my father died. Just wonderful people. I was a good student in school because my dad was a smart guy, and I just wanted to impress him, and I worked hard. I don't think I was a brainiac. I just worked hard. I acquiesced to my teachers. I tried to learn, and I got good grades. And basketball was not something I dreamt of being. I was the worst player on my 9th grade team, my 7th grade, 8th grade, and I was the worst player on my team. I only played because my best friend was on the team. He was a very good player. That was the only reason I played. But I read a book by a guy named Red Auerbach. Some of you may have heard of Red Auerbach. And Red Auerbach he was a great teacher. And he talked about fundamentals of basketball. And by being a good student, I learned those fundamentals. And I learned how to play defense really well, like Bill Russell. You know, I learned how to play defense, how to shuffle my feet, how to keep my balance, how to block shots. And then slow by little, my offensive skills came along. By the time I left high school, I was the best player in the state of Texas. By the time I left the University of Houston, and because I had good grades, I had scholarship offers, academic and athletic, everywhere. Harvard, Cal Berkeley, Stanford, University of Texas, Houston. I had my choice of universities to go to. And it was nothing I set out and planned to do, but I kept getting better because of the hard work and my devotion to taking care of my body, listening to my parents, who I never saw drunk or drinking. And it just came natural, and it was so good. And by the time I was drafted as a third player picked in the 1972 draft by the Cleveland Cavaliers, all of my hopes and dreams to achieve a place in life, they became real. Even though I never dreamt of being an athlete, I did dream of making over $100,000 a year. And all that became real with being drafted. And it's like, this great, you know, this is great. And then the lessons that I learned as a child and young man began to recede. They weren't so important because I wanted to impress my new friends. And my new friends were doing all sorts of things that my parents weren't doing. And I said, okay, Dwight. I started justifying, well, I can do this, I can do that. I can drink a little here and do a little this and do a little that. And I started justifying. And I justified myself into a full-blown addiction. So marijuana, to snorting cocaine, to eventually to crack cocaine. And because I only have 25 minutes, I was an addict for over 20 years. And I don't want to keep you guys here for 20 years telling you everything, okay? But I want to speed through this because I want to talk about myself, but I want to talk about a couple other people that you might know. And I want to talk about changes and hope on the landscape of recovery. I want to talk a little bit about that. And so, but what I can tell you about addiction, I didn't intend to be an addict when I started using drugs. I intended to have a good time. I intended to fit in. I intended to be cool with the girls. Though, I had those kind of intentions. And I looked at my track record based on some of my accomplishments in life. I thought this was something that I could handle. Even back then, I thought I could handle this. And the thing about addiction is, I think all addicts, they don't intend to become addicts. They intend to experiment, they intend to have a little fun, they tend to relax. Their intention is not to become an addict, not to become a failure at life. That is not an addict's intention. I'm so proud to be here today, married. My wife and I own a small, good business. I have great relationships with my children and my grandchildren. I have great relationships with people in my community. I have respect. All of those things I gave up, slow by little. And I'm telling you, in 1972, when the Cavaliers drafted me, I was sharp. My mind was sharp, laser sharp. I was a pharmacy major at the University of Houston. My mind was sharp. But I took those risks, and I found myself in a place that I had no control. I was on a train, like the train that runs from Exeter to Boston. But on that train, you don't get off until it lets you off. And most times it lets you off the graveyard, prison, hospital facility. That's where it normally lets you off. So I am so grateful to God just to be able to be here today and to have the life that I have. I want to run through a couple little things that this guy did as an addict. I can remember one Christmas. I was still living in Northern California. I had not played for the Golden State Warriors then, which was my second team. I hadn't played for that team for years, several years. And I remember one day, it was just before Christmas, maybe a day or two before Christmas. I had no money. I had no money for crack. I had nothing. My loving parents wanted me to come home. I had friends who wanted me to go to treatment facilities. I was too embarrassed to go back to Houston, Texas, with my tail between my legs. I was too proud to accept money for treatment from my friends, and I probably didn't want to go to treatment because I couldn't take my dealers to treatment. Right? That's how an addict thinks. I've always been a respecter of the law, and I always cared about people. This Christmas Eve or so, I found myself without any money, and I saw this elderly black lady in this little rough neighborhood of Oakland, California that I lived in at this time. And I say lived, I mean that with asterisks. I slept in dope houses. I slept wherever I could sleep. This old black lady, she came out of this little store. She had her purse, and I just remember her having this purse. She was walking. And I looked at this lady, and I said, man, I could grab her purse and run, and nobody will catch me. I know I can. And I can have some money for crack. That thought crossed my mind. And I lingered on that thought. And by grace, another thought came along. Another thought came along that seldom comes to an addict. What if? The what if never comes to an addict. When the addict gets about to get out, the what if the police come in? What if I die? It doesn't cross your mind. It crossed my mind that day. What if you grab this lady's purse? She's walking down the sidewalk and she falls and she cracks her skull open. I didn't. And I'm so glad I didn't. But I stole from my neighbors. I had one friend who I got high with. He went to work one day, and I didn't have no money for a crack. I broke in his house and stole a couple of TVs. He came to my house after work and said, "Dwight, somebody broke in my house, stole my TVs." I said, "Let's go find the guy, man. Let's go find him." That's what I said. I honestly said. That was the limit of my integrity. That was the best that I could do. And I didn't learn that growing up in the schools that I went to, the neighborhood I grew up with, the family I grew up with. I didn't learn that. I became that slow by little. After I had spent all the money, the basketball money I could get my hands on, by the grace of God, I had some of it deferred, quite a bit deferred that I couldn't get my hands on. Any baseball fans in here? Baseball fans? Anybody heard of a guy named Ken Caminiti? Okay, a couple of you guys. Okay, I'm going to jog your memory. A lot of you heard of Ken Caminiti. Ken Caminiti had a 15-year career as a third baseman in the National League. He played for the San Diego Padres and the Houston Astros. In 1996, he was the most valuable player in Major League Baseball. I got a chance to meet Ken when I was back in Houston. I finally moved back to Houston to try to get my life together. But I carried the same. I went back to Houston, but I didn't bring recovery with me to Houston. Went back to stay at my parents' house. Now I'm over 40 years old, staying at my parents' house. I got busted with cocaine residue in my car. Had to do 6 months in Texas State Prison. Went in October, and he got there in February. Same deal, drugs. There was another guy named Dexter Manley who played with the Washington Redskins, football player. He was there. Dexter Manley is 6'4", 260 pounds. Dwight Davis, 6'8". I'm 6'8". I'm 6'8", 203. Ken Caminiti, 6'1", a rock ray of 200 pounds. I mean, this guy can hit a baseball. There we are. We're in Texas State Prison. And the other prisoners looking at us, they calling us the three dumb amigos. How can you guys with such privilege find yourself here in prison like this? You got to be dumb to have money and get in prison for a drug charge. And they're right, we were dumb. But there are no smart addicts. I was released in April of that year. Ken was released somewhere afterwards. And he and I made a vow we were going to look out for each other, we were going to stay strong and be strong. Well, later that year, I was using again. And my then wife told me, look, you got to go get yourself straight, or it's not going to be any more marriage. So I went to a halfway house. I was there for 6 weeks, and I thought I'd done a really good job. And it was October. October was coming up. It was late September, and so it was time for us to do our timeshare. So she called me, Dwight, you've done such a great job. So excited. You can come home. Why don't we do this now? Friday's the last day. You're going to be there. I've got to work Saturday and Sunday. She was an optometrist. I got to work Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to meet you up in the Berkshires. You take a plane out Saturday. I'll meet you there Monday. Everything will be great. I'm so happy. Welcome home, baby, and all that kind of good stuff. So Friday night, I packed up my little car, and I said, wow, I got 2 free days, and I'm going to go home to mama. So I drove, I found all the drugs I could, but that was going to be my last high. How many times have you heard that? You have a lot of clients you work with, that last high. I mean, this is the last high. So I go around, I get on the plane. They have to roll a gurney on the plane when I got to, what's the city in New Hampshire with Massachusetts? Start with the H. Huh? No, the big city in Massachusetts. I'm trying to count. Huh?
Boston?
No. Hartford. Connecticut. They had to roll a gurney on the plane, take me off the plane. And in the emergency room, the guy that may say, Mr. Davis, I don't know what you into, but your systems are failing. You got to tell me. And you want to? It was true confession then. I told him what I've been doing. He said, okay, they revived me, and they put me in the hospital, Hartford General. So my wife, it was about a day or so before she got there. And I'm telling you, this is the mind of an addict. They delivered my baggage the next day to the room. I still had my paraphernalia in there. The nurse came by that morning, checked my vitals, everything was great. She comes back 3 hours later after I got my bag, and she checked my vitals, and she said, I'm sick of you. While she was gone, I'd gone to the bathroom, used the rest of the little drugs I had. She said, you're disgusting. We just saved your life. And you're going to do this? My wife came. She was totally disgusted. She knew she hadn't talked to me in 48 hours. She knew what was happening. Worst vacation ever. Stay there, get home. On the plane home, she said, I never want to see you again. We get to Houston Intercontinental Airport. She get in her car, she go her way. I get in my car, I go get drugs again. This is the end for me. I'm driving down Westheimer Boulevard. I don't know if you've ever been to Houston. Westheimer Boulevard. It's a boulevard about as big as 101. Has 5 lanes of traffic each side, all the nightclubs, all the restaurants, everything. I'm driving down this boulevard in a blackout. Didn't know I'm in a blackout. I'm in a blackout. And I see lights flashing a little bit. I hear something that sounds like horns and noise. And eventually, I notice there's a police officer behind me. His lights on. And I'm able somehow to pull the car over. He got out of the car, walked over to me, said, what is your problem? And I started crying, telling him my wife left me and this, that, and the other. I had open containers. I had all kind of drugs in the car. He didn't look in the car. He just told me to get out, walked me over to his car, put me in the front seat of his cruiser, turned the dash cam on, put it in rewind, then turned it on and showed it to me. And he showed me, he said, I was chasing you for 5 minutes trying to get you to stop. Those lights I saw flashing were the lights of other cars that were going cross at different intersections. People flashing their lights trying to stop. The noise out, those horns, before he turned the siren, those are horns. They had multiple calls of me driving 70 miles an hour in a 40-mile zone on a Friday night on the boulevard like that. And I said, I'm going to prison because I've been there already for the possession before. In Texas, they don't mess around. This is it. He got out of the car. I thought he was going to put me in the back seat. He put me back in my car and said, look, do you have some place to go in the morning? I said, yes, I can go to my mother's house, my father's house. He said, this is my area. This is my area right here. I got the driver's license plate. If this car moves before daylight, you will go to prison for a long time. I don't know who this police officer was. Never saw him since. When daylight came, I called this guy named Rick H., a guy I'd met the first time. The one time I was in Texas State Prison. He was the guy who came and he ran the 12-step program. I said, Rick, I'm ready. For me, it took over 20 years of addiction, 2 marriages. It took me the thought of me killing someone else. Understand this, most addicts, we don't care about dying. An addict not in recovery. Death would be a way out. It's one reason why so many addicts die. Death is a way out. Because we somehow you begin to feel so helpless without the right support group, without the right direction. And that's where I was. But I couldn't imagine killing someone else. That day was October 1st, 2003. And that's my clean date, and that's when my life started turning around. And to go back to Ken Caminetti, on October 10th, 2004, the day before my birthday, October 11th, I picked up a newspaper and I read the story about Ken Caminetti was dead. You know about the circumstance of Ken Caminetti being dead? Ken Caminetti, probably worth 50, 60 million dollars. I guess that's chump change for an athlete now. But we probably worth 50, 60 million dollars. Had a beautiful wife, 3 lovely girls that adored him. And all they wanted for Ken was to get clean. Just like my wife, just to get clean. Ken had met some little lady that it was his girlfriend, his get-high partner. She was from the Bronx, New York. Ken Caminetti's circumstance when he died was, he was in the apartment of his girlfriend's husband, shooting speedballs, shooting cocaine and heroin. When he overdosed, all the addicts decided they had to deliberate on it about what they're going to call for an ambulance. I think it was about 3 o'clock. He ended up dying about 6:30 that evening at a hospital in the Bronx. If someone had called them sooner, he probably would have lived. But what is this man? I met Ken. He's a smart guy, smart athlete, smart business person. And I share all this just to let you know, just to impart upon you, and you guys know this because you guys support recovery. There is no rhyme or reason. One last example, Whitney Houston. They're about to do a movie on Whitney Houston. You don't have to be a music aficionado to know that name. Wonderful, aspiring, had it all, and had great family from the church. She was raised in the church. Mother, Sissy, still in the church. But there is no defense for addiction other than active treatment. Active treatment. Strong family helps. A good community is essential, but you gotta have treatment. I know that you guys know that just by my examples and just by your experiences, the demographic for substance abuse is endless. It crosses every demographic imaginable, from young preteen kids to grandparents, rich or poor, professional or not, health professional or not, doesn't matter. But the thing that we have to be hopeful about, I was watching the news the other day when it was announced that the state had created new funding for health care and health treatment for addicts. And that lets me know, and that should let you know that the tide is turning, because we've experienced it all as a community. In the 50s and 60s, in the suburbs, you had the cocktail of drugs, cocaine, alcohol, you had all this cold cocktail. And then toward the 90s, you had crack in the urban area. Now we've had, now we have the opioids in the rural and semi-rural areas. And each demographic before said, oh, that'll never be us. I know in the inner city, when we heard about the kids in the suburbs and their problems, oh, that'll never be us. When it happened in the inner city, the folks in the rural areas said, we're safe. That'll never be us. But I think it's finally touched our collective consciousness that we need to be all in as a community. And I know I'm talking to the choir right now. I know I'm talking to the choir. But I do know that you have to be replenished too. That all your good work is tiring. It drains you. It drains your resources and your time. But there are changes on the horizon. There are changes on the landscape that are going to make a difference in the way your community grows and develops. If you just don't give up before the miracle happens. I want to stress several different things, and one of those is, in a community, it's so important that you offer job opportunities for addicts in recovery. Let me say that again, addicts in recovery. Because without that support where they can gain esteem and develop themselves, they will stay on that wheel, on that hamster wheel. So I ask you to work with the local agencies, work with Headrest to see where you can take on addicts in recovery who've proven themselves, who've proven that they can be trusted. There are no magic bullets in recovery. There are a number of similar indicators when a person is actively recovering. But we must be aware that relapse is possible. It is possible. I'm evidence. Those 20 years, there were many times I said, I'm giving it up for good. And I get 3 months here, I got a year there, I get 6 months here. But I'm so grateful that the folks in my life, my parents, my good friends, they didn't give up before the miracle happened. They did arm themselves with the right information as to how to work with me, to hold me accountable to my word, to my deed. They protected themselves, but they never gave up. So I'm asking you, the community of Headrest, to never give up. And finally, if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, I want to share something with you that someone shared with me a long time ago in addiction. If you can remember this, an addict is not a bad person trying to get good. An addict is a sick person who wants to be well. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your annual meeting tonight. Thank you. I get a real one, okay. Thank you, that's my granddaughter. Sure. I want to do one thing. I'm going to take some questions, but I want to have a chance to honor somebody right now. Chuck, can I get you to come up, please, sir? For all that you've done for Headrest in the community, Chuck, this is a token to you from Headrest and myself. It's an official Dwight Davis autograph basketball. Thank you for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, and it's an honor for GeoCon and the community as a whole to be able to be here and support Headrest and all that they do for the community. So, and thank you for the inspiring story. It's great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lori asked me to open it up to questions if there are any questions from anyone. But I know you guys have a PhD in this recovery stuff, so. Well,
I have a question.
sure.
What was the most important thing you think, single thing that was important to help you in your recovery? Is there one thing that you can name?
Well, again, for me, the realization that I was a deadly weapon scared me. But that was only good because that was a thought that got me to what we call a moment of clarity. They got me to a moment of clarity. The most important thing was Rick H., who dedicated his time to work with me, and then having 12-step meetings around. And the folks in the 12-step room, the thing about the 12-step room is it's kind of magical. you go in there and everybody understands, and they look at you in a certain way that make you feel okay. When you're an addict and you're out there in the world, and we expose ourselves pretty good as addicts by the way we dress, talk, act, the fact that we when other folks at work, we're out on the street. You get used to accustomed to some looks that make you feel less than. You know, it's a hamster wheel. Yeah. But having treatment and having a sponsor meant a lot. Well, again, and I don't want to discount having family. That when I was ready, they were ready. When I had family, friends, when I was ready, they were ready. Laura, you had what? No, this lady.
I have a similar question.
Oh, similar question. Okay.
I have the same.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I want another one. Another question.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Eric.
You mentioned, without treatment, recovery would be really difficult to acquire. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important or helpful thing about treatment that you found in your experience?
First of all, the people who learned in treatment, they're very understanding. Oftentimes, many of them, they've had an addiction or they've had experience with addiction. They've been trained very well, so they're very accepting. I don't know if I can really explain it well, but as an addict, you pick up sensors from normal people, and they probably pick up sensors from us. There's something wrong with us, and you feel disconnected. You go into a 12-step room. You work with a seasoned pro in treatment. You feel accepted, and I think that's the best way I can explain it. That experience. If I work with you, one of the first things you're going to do, you're going to set boundaries because I'm the kind of person who likes to call outside the line. You're going to set boundaries, and but that's something that addicts don't. We run from, and that's the best I can do on that. Yeah.
I wonder if you would talk about the network. I'm amazed by the networks that exist out there of brothers and sisters that are in recovery. And you can go anywhere. It's not necessarily through AA or anything like that, but there are, hiking groups. There are people that. It's amazing in terms of the kind of support that you can get once you can tap into it. Because the other issue is you've got to make a change, and your friends have to be different. So, but this is vast network of people.
The network is.
Can you just repeat the question?
Okay. Well, that was a long question, Laura. I'm not as good as you, Laura.
So he was just asking.
Yeah.
Rob was just asking about.
I just summarized it. Okay. The question was about the vast network. Talk about the vast network in recovery. And it is a vast network. One of the reasons is because it crosses every demographic. From truck driver to CEO, to presidents, to dancers, to rich and poor, and the recovery community is very good about bringing us together, and you realize in those rooms, in those recovery rooms. You realize that it's not the color of my skin or my ethnicity. None of that's going to save my ass. It's the person sitting to my left and the person sitting to my right, and my willingness to give. That's one thing that my mother had in common with the recovery place. They say if you're out there for 20 years, you need to try to serve for 40 years. So it's that kind of thing. And it is a wonderful network, and you can find it any place on earth. I've gone to meetings outside of the country many times, in Brazil, in Mexico, in the Philippines. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about stigma, especially in the healthcare community. I know for our professionals at Headrest, they are incredibly accepting, but I'm concerned about the message that people get in the bigger healthcare community. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to hit on when I was talking. You know, if this group were assembled to fund and support breast cancer, we'd all run out the door saying, "Yay, we just had a meeting funding and supporting breast cancer." If this meeting were for us supporting child abuse, we could run out of the door as a group. Yay, we just did so much for child abuse. But the stigma surrounding substance abuse, it keeps a lot of people from sharing the fact that they've invested into recovery. Because for every friend that tells you it's a good thing, there's a friend who's going to tell you, why are you wasting your money on those losers? You know, and that is something that we have to continue to work on. And that's one of the things that is changing, Lori, on the landscape. That those walls are being broken down because every family, almost every family, is experiencing someone near and dear to them having to deal with recovery. And so we still have work to do to be fully accepted for the work that we're doing and understanding that this is a sick person. And there's still a lot of people who aren't ready to accept that it is a sickness. Nobody goes out with the intention of becoming an addict.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one more. In terms of thinking about your own recovery, and you talked a lot about that, but what was the single thing that your therapist had that you needed and really made a difference in terms of, maybe a kernel of some sort that you treasure?
Well, for me, it was that moment of clarity that I was a deadly weapon, and I really felt that if I went back out, I was going to kill someone. Before it was all a matter of, okay, I'm going to overdose.
But what did the therapist do? Like, you've got therapists out here.
Well, I really
from
didn't have
Headrest. They need to know that.
Okay, well, I had a sponsor, and he was not a professional. So what Rick asked me to do was to just every day wake up and do my best. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer. Just to do my best. Prior to then, I always had an expiration date. Well, I'm gonna stay clean for a week, or on my birthday, I had exceptions. Yeah. But I never figured that I'd be a deadly weapon. So he made it clear to me that this is what you're gonna have to do as a lifestyle. And I was ready. Yeah. I was ready. I think it was like, did you watch the Berlin Wall coming down? I'm sure you probably did. I know I did. And I heard one commentator talk about the Berlin Wall coming down. People, all of these sledgehammers hitting it, and then one commentator, I wish I remember who it was, said it was not the first blow, nor was it the last blow. It was all the blows in between, from the first to the last. And that's what it was for me. It was all those experiences I had that made me finally realize where I was. That's for me.
Yeah, great.
You talked about the 12-step program. How in depth did you go into that? I mean, was it there are some 12-step programs that they read a book and they're done. And they don't really go into it.
My sponsor wasn't like that. We had to do the steps.
So did it take you a long time to finish? Because sometimes it takes years.
Well, I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished yet. No, it wasn't a novel. That's just my, it's like a daily newspaper coming every day, and that's what we do. Yeah. Matter of fact, when I moved up here from Houston, I was telling Rick, I had a year clean when I moved up here, and I said, well, Rick, this is great. I'm going to do really good up here. I met this wonderful lady. I got work. And so he said, well, you haven't mentioned one thing. I said, what's that? You haven't told me about your sponsor up in New Hampshire. I said, well, you're my sponsor. What I need a sponsor up here for? He said, I'm talking about a sponsor who can look you in your eye. So this phone thing doesn't do it. And yeah.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I
Alice.
have a question, but I don't know how to say this. So I want to thank you.
You don't know how to say this after all I shared with you? Are you going to be bashful? No.
But I have to admit at the beginning that I've been angry hard over all of the television and the police brutality that I see. And you've shared a story about a police person who took time and compassion. And I really appreciate that story because I am angry. I'm tied up in there are other examples that I've not seen, and yet you've shared them. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, Senator. I want to say this too. The police officer, I've never seen him before. I don't think he knew who Dwight Davis was. He was Caucasian, and it was a God thing. It was a God thing because if he had taken me in, I would have spent 10, 15 years in Texas prison to be sure. It's a second-time offender. Yeah. But we have to remember. Something my loving father told me. I grew up in segregated Houston, Texas. I didn't go to the library until I was 12 years old. I rode on the back of the bus. All that kind of stuff is fresh on my mind. And as a young kid, you want to be mad about that kind of stuff. Because I love to read, but I couldn't go to the library. And my dad sat us down and talked to all the kids and said, look, you're not going to be angry at any race of people because if these things are going to change, it's going to take all people. Everybody's going to be helping to make this change. That's what my dad told us.
What do you do to maintain your sobriety or your recovery?
What do I do? I work hard. I do this. I talk to, as Cameron shared with you, I do a ton of work with young folks. I don't talk about it. I do a ton of work with young folks who are on the precipice. I, in my business, went in-home care for seniors. Any kind of service work where you are demonstrating humility keeps it all fresh in mind. It keeps it fresh in my mind, and that's for any addict. Service work.
12. Step 12.
Step 12, service work. Service work.
You still play basketball?
I did till my wife retired me. I had a knee injury that put me up in the hospital and cost several $1,000s. She said, "You're done." She said, "Basketball is only good if you're making money. If it's costing us money." That's a true story. She retired me. Anything else? Anybody else?
Thank you.
This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Don't go away.
Don't go away.
Right.
Oh, hang on. So I want to thank Dwight. It's been a long, good friendship, and I appreciate it. And it's such a pleasure to have Dwight here. And in honor of that, we're going to present you with this clock.
Oh, wow. Oh, nice.
So, and it has an inscription in it. And I want to thank you very much.
That's very nice. Thank you all. Thank you.
I'll hide.
So each year, Headrest gives a community service award, And that community service award goes to somebody in appreciation for their contribution to working with people in recovery and valuing hope for the future for those individuals. The last 5 years, we've given the award to the following people. Last year, it was to Greg Norman. The year before, it was to Ed Register. Prior to that, it was Sarah Kobolensky. And then Kevin and Diddy Callahan and Deborah Armichald. Kevin and Diddy Callahan were parents of a young woman on the Dartmouth rugby team who committed suicide. And each year they sponsor and support a rugby team race that's done in honor of Headrest. So that year we gave that award to them. That was in 2014. And then in 2013, we gave the award to all of our collective favorite, Jack and Dorothy Byrne. So this year we're going to give the award to Chief Justice Tina Nadeau. And I just want to tell you a little bit about her before we have a video visit from her. Tina Nadeau was appointed Associate Justice to the New Hampshire Superior Court in 1996. And in 2014, she was appointed Chief Justice of the Superior Court. Prior to being appointed to the bench, Nadeau served as legal counsel to former Governor Steve Merrill from 1992 through 1996. She began her legal career in 1989 as an assistant attorney general in the homicide division. In 2006, Justice Nadeau spearheaded the effort to open a drug court in Rockingham County Superior Court, and she presided there as drug court judge for 4 years. At that time, there were 3 operating drug courts in New Hampshire. Once she became Chief Justice, she secured federal funding for drug courts in 2 additional counties. Under Justice Nadeau's leadership, there's now a total of 10 drug courts that are up and running here in New Hampshire. In 2016, Justice Nadeau worked with legislators to pass legislation for statewide funding of drug court in New Hampshire. As part of the statewide legislation, Justice Nadeau has hired a statewide coordinator, Alex, and is working with all of the counties to ensure that they comply with the national standards for adult drug courts. As Chief Justice, she's continued to cover for other drug court judges at least once a month. I've had the pleasure of working with Chief Justice Nadeau on drug court legislation. No one could be more laser focused on a goal or more passionate about a cause. She offered hope to people who were incarcerated and gave them an opportunity to come out on the other side of their addiction. A word from Chief Justice Nadeau.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Nadeau, and I'm so sorry I can't be there with you tonight, but I want you to know that I am deeply moved and profoundly humbled to join the long line of dedicated individuals who've received this Headrest Award. I accept this honor on behalf of everyone in our state who works constantly to meet the high standards this award represents. I've thought a lot about tonight and what I could possibly say to a group of committed community leaders who constantly find ways to give back to the community, who continually strive to assist individuals and their families who are suffering from mental illness or drug addiction. I'm sure everyone here understands the challenge to be creative, to embrace innovation, and to accept personal risks so that those who sorely need our help can receive effective services. Your willingness to accept this challenge makes our state the kind of place in which we're all proud to live. And I thought about my own approach to service and whether it measures up to the high standard I know you all strive to achieve. And of course, I thought about those who continue to endure substance use disorder and what can be done to help them. We all know stories of individuals whose troublesome journeys demonstrate the challenges we face in seeking to change old practices and perceptions and to bring a deeper understanding to the issues of mental illness and drug addiction. People like Morgan, who suffered from PTSD and anxiety as a result of being raped at the age of only 15. And despite the loving support of her parents, she turned to heroin to numb her pain. 4 years later, after entanglement with the criminal justice system and several treatment failures, she died of an overdose in the middle of the night, asleep in her mother's arms. The criminal justice system is full of stories like Morgan's. Those stories give us an opportunity to ask some really hard questions. How do we provide comprehensive services to those most in need? How do we balance treatment with civil liberties? How do we ensure that the criminal justice system responds with compassion and understanding to those who have mental illness and drug addiction? These answers are not easy, but with courage and determination, we can provide them. And in the process, we can examine and improve a system that sadly was unable to prevent a young woman from dying of a drug overdose in her mother's arms. Every day, you have the chance to make a difference in the lives of people like Morgan and countless others around you. And how can you do that? By believing that if you care about doing what's right, you do not have to care who gets credit for a new idea you come up with. If you care about improving just one person's life, you will not care about criticism for ruffling feathers along the way. And if you want to leave this world a better place when your work is finished, you will be unafraid of the change necessary to make that happen. I know you are all involved in the task of demystifying mental illness and substance use disorder. You help society focus more on the treatment than punishment. You convince others that a broken mind is no less a medical condition than a broken bone. By demanding this effort of yourselves, you will encourage it in others, and I am delighted to join you in this task. Thank you again for this singular honor. I tell you, I will continue to strive to deserve it.
We have already signed Chief Justice Nato up to be our speaker for next year. So we hope you'll come back. So I'd like to once again just express our collective appreciation for you joining us tonight. And again, for the staff, for all you do. We don't get together and tell you that enough. And also for the board members, thank you for your hard work. And for all of you, our supporters and friends, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for giving us a wonderful evening.